back, everyone, to another episode of A.IdlePodcast, the podcast where I do weekly book reviews. This week, I read Good Morning, Love by Ashley Coleman. This was actually just released about a week ago, I think, in June of 2022. And it's a young Black love story that's serving healthy conversation on creativity and career paths, music industry navigation, and a hint of a love triangle. Now, Ashley Coleman is a writer. Obviously, she wrote this novel, but she's also a songwriter. She is a music executive, and most importantly, she's a part of the East Coast family. Well, she's on the East Coast, I'm on the East Coast, not like Biv 10 or anything like that. But so I'm already rooting for her. But I think that her understanding of being, a music executive and being within that industry, that really influences the narrative. Obviously, you'll see once we get into more of the story. So with that being said, I feel like, of course, I don't know, but I feel like it's more accurate, a lot of the information we're getting about, breaking into the music industry, more accurate than most other fiction pieces. So I'm taking her word for it because, obviously she understands, just how songs get produced and put on albums and all that good stuff, but we'll get there. Now, the title, obviously the title means something. It's the song title that ultimately gets created. And if you want to go deeper than that, like if we want to get all metaphorical here, it really represents Carli, our main character's awakening to her power as an artist. Like, good morning, love, let's wake up, let's get this done. You have this talent and let's act on it. Now, there are 33 chapters, and what I loved about this book is that each chapter is titled as a track. So track 1, track 2, track 3, etc. Which, again, is kind of pulling from that musical background. Now, the book is less than 300 pages, and it was an easy read, honestly. I feel like this could be something that can be read like on the beach or something. That's probably a really good place to read this book. Or just, relaxing with a glass of wine. I always recommend that. Now, when we talk about writing style, so there's a very clear relevancy in the way that Coleman wrote this book. Because, I'll say this before I get into my analysis of her writing style, there are a plethora of fiction books nowadays that, in an effort to connect with millennials or Gen Z, they just throw around terms that are used on social media, and it feels very forced, and it feels like not natural for the characters to be just thrown around, yes, girl, or, like different slang that's just kind of like, we use it, but, you didn't have to really forcefully insert it, and so it pulls you out of the story. I say all of that to say that that's not happening here at all. And I love that she's able to keep a level of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not relevancy. I guess current. Like, this book feels very current. It's written in this time period, and it doesn't sound like it was written from the perspective of someone that hasn't been outside in a while. Now, the way that she does that is she relates character appearances and gestures to well-known entertainers within the narration. And this is something that I picked on within the first few pages. It helps the audience visualize character actions or dialogue or anything if they're able to pinpoint a real life example to that. So, right, like within the first couple of chapters, Carli describes Dawn as placing her hand on her chest, reminding her of Regine from Living Single. I got it right away, but if you're someone that you're not familiar with Living Single, that's something that you can easily, look up on YouTube and, you can compare. And another one is Carli talks about how Frankie rubs his hands together like Birdman. Hilarious. But again, I immediately caught that reference, and it's nice for me, and it's easier for me to fall into the book and not feel like I'm currently in my apartment reading. Like, I feel like I'm in the story and I'm able to see exactly what's going on through Carli's eyes when I can compare and contrast to the real world. And also, it puts Carli in the place of someone who also knows these entertainers, and she watches Living Single, and she knows Martin, and she's aware of Birdman and how he rubs his hands together. So I enjoyed that particular part of the writing. And then we have a Love Jones reference. I was dying. I loved it. So in the story, they go see Love Jones, but more importantly, I think that there's an influence from Love Jones within the narrative. And what we find is that this is kind of an example of art foreshadowing the feelings of our characters. I think a lot of the times when we have references to different artists or lyrics, our characters are able to really communicate with us without talking through those references. I know another book that has a great example of this is Open Water, that I reviewed a few weeks ago, where there was a lot of references to like neo soul and different rap artists, that it's like, okay, I can catch the vibe you're on by the people that you're talking about, or the people that you say that you look up to. I can fill in more of your character arc by understanding who you hold near and dear to your heart. So, and lastly, with writing styles, I picked up on a couple of writing tropes, and tropes are just like things that are consistently used. It could be a theme, it could be a saying, or whatever may have you. But one being that all R&B singers identify with church roots, which it was pretty funny that was kind of alluded to here in the story, because it's kind of true. Like, if you look at the Jodeci's, who else? The Mary J. Blige's, like, all of our legends, they started in the church. And so it's kind of, that's like a long running joke, and it's cool that it was incorporated into our character stories as they are within that musical industry as well. And then lastly, the trope of career versus passion, which for a lot of us translates to what's the safe bet versus what you're dreaming of. What's your ultimate goal? That's explored quite extensively through Carli's character arc. Okay, so Carli, I've spoken or referenced to her a few times before this, but this is our main character. She is an Afro-Colombian young woman in NYC who, in her words, is juggling her dreams of writing music and paying her NYC rent. That has to be rough. That has to be rough. I've Googled some of NYC's rent, and it's absolutely outrageous. I don't know how people do it. But anyway, so she works for like a PR marketing agency by day, but any other time she's writing music. She has a reputation as the boss's favorite. And the irony is, she doesn't really that's not her dream job to be there, but she excels there because she puts so much time and effort into it. But it's just funny because it's like, that's not really what she wants to be doing, but that's where all of her time is essentially going to, because she's got to pay that rent. So she has this overall mentality of being strictly business. So we have to understand, with her having essentially 2 jobs, she's always on the clock. She's always working. And so for her, she's not even really thinking about love. Even when the opportunity presents itself to have fun, she's like, look, I got songs to write, or I have to go do something for my boss for my 9 to 5, which actually pays my rent. So it's interesting to see her go from this character that is I want to say fearful, but that doesn't seem fair to the character. Someone who plays by the rules, essentially. So she's going to work every day. She's getting that paycheck. She knows that she's going to be able to pay her rent on time while kind of striving for her work to take off. But she ends up kind of breaking the rules a little bit in order to achieve kind of both in the end. She's faced with harnessing her talent and her faith in herself to achieve what she always wanted. So she ends up being this person that is faithful to what she wants and what she wants to accomplish in the end, and not necessarily what she thinks other people thinks that she has to do, if that makes sense. And then Tao Anderson. So it's T-A-U, and I'm familiar with like the Greek, alphabet. So like I say Tao, but I don't know how it's supposed to be pronounced. But Tao Anderson, I just say Tao. He is a young Black artist, and he's described by Carli as a vision of young money, a mix of Black excellence and street prowess. Basically, he's out here making the girls swoon with all of his runs and his sex appeal. So he's that type of artist. Now, he has a reputation of being, obviously, a ladies' man and being one of those artists that is just running through these girls. If you hear that in the background, that is Kitty Boo Boo. She has lost her mind and she is running up and down the apartment. Sorry. Now, he has a mentality that is really interesting. And this is a quote that I actually wrote down because I thought that it encompassed a good mindset. Work like they won't so you can live like they can't. But there's a lot more behind that quote, because he's talking about his everyday life. He's running from meetings to press appearances to photo shoots to doing all this type of stuff in the mix of recording and all this stuff. He doesn't see his family a lot. He's busy. That has to be tiring and just emotionally draining. But again, if you look back at what he said, he's working like a lot of other people will not work so that he can live like a lot of other people won't live. So there's sacrifices, pros and cons to everything. But I also want to say, he's all about working hard and whatnot, but he's also a certified lover boy. So do with that what you may. But he has a very soft side. So that was nice to see in his character. And he really goes from being seen as this celebrity product of an artist to a real person that has, real issues and real emotions and struggles. That's one comment on nowadays that I think that, especially with Instagram and stuff, it's difficult to remember that these celebrities are people, and that they have the same emotions as us, they have different things going on in their lives, but they still love, hurt, go through heartbreak and whatever may have you. So it was nice being able to see the persona of Tao from afar. Literally the first chapter is us witnessing a performance on one of his shows, to actually being able to understand him as a person. There were two main themes. Also, there's a bunch more characters, but as you know, these are the two that made the most impact with me. But there's a lot more going on in this book than just these two. It's not fully a love story, so I don't want to sell anybody on that. There's a good amount of conversation regarding professional development, the path that a creative should take, and all that good stuff, in addition to the romance side. But that's not the only thing going on here. And we see that because our first theme is sexism, particularly in the industry. And this is that whole idea of a casting couch, where literally you can get into one of these situations where you think you're coming to a meeting, and you end up coming to some hotel room and, being put into a situation where you have to make a really tough decision. And it's kind of like a quid pro quo, where it's you let this person hit this very powerful executive hit, and they're going to put you on, or they might not. But what you cannot do, as we've seen in this book, is refuse. Because if you refuse advances of someone who has enough power, they can and more than likely will get you pulled off of whatever projects or, whatever may have you. So we see Carli experience this in particular with Meg. So this is a good conversation on women in the industry and how, breaking in is hard enough. But breaking in as a young minority woman, you have to deal with all types of advances. We see that frequently, any person that she meets within this field is like looking her up and down, giving her the eye, essentially sexualizing her as soon as she walks into the room without even recognizing that she's talented, she has a lot to give, but they don't care about that. And you know what? This just popped in my head. What's the song called? Reason has a song called... No, okay, see, now I have to look it up because I need... This is a good reference, and it seems fitting for me to throw out a song reference when we're talking about this book. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for the awkward silence. I'm logging into Tidal now. Okay. It's on this 2020 album, and it is Fall. Okay, it's Fall. That song essentially sums up a lot of what we've seen Carli experience in this book. So it's just, it's just talking about how you can have all of the talent in the world, but sometimes it doesn't matter, because if you meet someone with terrible intentions, it can really ruin your life, whether you give into it or not. So if you've ever encountered someone like that, unfortunately, it's a lose-lose situation, because you're not guaranteed the benefit of whatever they're promising you, even if you let them, do whatever it is that they want to do. So, but also this shows us how the power of a bad reputation can really come down a lot harder on women than men, especially in the industry. There was a lot of pushback from Dawn, her boss at the agency, on fraternizing with clients, which totally understandable. If you're at work, you shouldn't really be lollygagging with your clients and all, but it was more of a reflection on her than it was on Tao. Like, no one was saying, why are you being so friendly and flirty with this agency that's helping you get all this money and promotion? Like, that's not appropriate. I don't think anyone was saying that to him, but they were saying it to her, and they were making snide remarks. And then also the negative impact on the people around you once you start, emanating whispers and things like that. We see this in Carli's coworkers, who took it especially personal that she was excelling because she worked so hard, and they kind of spun it around and said that she's hanging out with the star client here, why is she getting promoted? But no one talks about the fact that, on top of the fact that she would go to the studio and write these songs and produce with her team and everything, that she was working crazy hours for her boss at that agency that she didn't even really like. So that was unfortunate, but very real conversation. And then obviously music is a theme. It's the main theme here. You can see Ashley Coleman's background within this book, just the discussions on processing tracks, producing and writing sessions. I don't know how any of that works. I think it's very cool, though, to see how things are pulled together. I also liked the description of how sometimes Carli would have like errant thoughts and would write them down on like napkins and stuff like that and save them for later, because I'm not a songwriter, but that's what I do. It's so funny, like, seeing the similarities between that. So that was part of it as well. And then just the conversations with the executives on the direction that an album should go and how much control an artist has over their music and stuff like that. stuff that normal people like you and I do not know about. But within the story, obviously, he's like a legend in the making. That's how he's described. Carli is this writer, and she's part of the production team with Red and Dylan. And then also, in the beginning stages of Carli and Tal's relationship, they kind of bonded via musical debates. And I think that it's nice to see that, because people connect over music, because music is the expression for everything that they can't necessarily comprehend or say themselves. So it's very real to be able to form a connection with someone based on you debating who's the best rapper of all time or something like that. So, and again, the whole favorite artists are a reflection of yourself, in a way. So that was cute. Them texting back and forth talking about J. Cole versus Kendrick, which, can we just put a pin in this? I'm so sick of hearing about that conversation. They're both great. Why does everyone have to be compared? Anyway. Okay, so my review. I love this book. It's a Black fiction piece without a traumatic twist or an ending. For some reason, throughout this book, I kept feeling like something really, really bad was going to happen. And I think it's because I've read like some really intense books lately, but I'm so glad that did not happen. It was just a nice carefree, read. There was nothing too emotionally intense that unsettled me, but it also touched on all these different topics. For me, the theme surrounding creativity versus being unimaginative, that really hits home for me. So it's something that I enjoyed the conversation on. It discusses issues relating to minorities with much more accuracy than most books. I say that because, yes, these topics are real, and I've always said that it should be included into fiction pieces more because it's a reflection of what's really going on in real life. But sometimes I think writers over dramatize it and make it way too emotionally intense, or they make it the main focus point of the story, when in reality, as a woman, you deal with like slights of sexism all day. And it can be minor stuff, it could be really intense, impactful stuff, but it's consistent, but it also doesn't completely stop your life. Like, life goes on and you have to get up and go to work and do whatever. So I say all that to say, I enjoyed the fact that although that's a heavy, really terrible topic, as well as, there was mention of police brutality briefly in the book, it wasn't like the main focal point, and it didn't make the story completely dreadful. Because that's really not what life is. Terrible things happen every day, and you just kind of have to deal with it and go forward. So I like that aspect of it. And most importantly for me, I think that this put into words a lot of my stress as a creative, being pulled from like the rationale of having a 9-to-5 and being stable to the unpredictability of art, and taking that leap out there to be one of those people that doesn't get a regular paycheck. Like, that's never been something that I've experienced. And so that's scary, kind of being pulled from one end to another. But it's like Carli was saying, it's more fulfilling to go after what you're supposed to do. You're meant to do whatever it is, be an artist, be a painter, be a musician. That's what you're here to do. And so it's much more fulfilling to accomplish that than to be the head of some marketing agency or, make a lot of money in banking or something like that. So yeah, this is a reread. This is one of those that's going to remain on my shelf. And it's something that I'll probably reread a few times. But I'm looking forward to more from Ashley Coleman. If this is any indication of her as a writer, I'm excited. I really am. I think selfishly as a reader, I would like a second book with exploring, Tao and Carli and how that kind of pans out. No spoilers. But I would love to read like anything else that she writes because I love her vibe already as a writer. I think she has a very smooth voice, comes across very well, and I was able to fall into the story effortlessly, so I'm with it. And I'm a very loyal reader. Okay, once I read something by an artist, author I like, I'm buying every book they write. I don't care. So yeah, I'm so for it. Even though this book just came out a week ago, I'm with it. So I think everyone should buy this book. It's great. And I have one takeaway here from Talia. She said we all need to be encouraged in our greatness every now and then. Very important. I think the scary part is not recognizing that you have a gift, but it's stepping out on achieving the heights that that gift can take you. So that was a lot of great encouragement that the people around Carli gave her. And I felt like they were talking to me too. So this book came right on time. I don't know who out in the universe is listening to me, but this book came right on time and I got a lot of great advice from it. And I hope it inspires other people as well. So this was great. I think everyone should read this book. It just came out, so it should be everywhere. I got my copy at Barnes & Noble, but you should be able to get it online, anywhere. You can also get it on her website, which I think is ashleycoleman.com. I was just on there earlier, so yeah. Well, thank you all for tuning into another episode. I will see you next week. I don't know what I'm reading yet, but we'll get there. Thank you.